Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The latest state to enter the language war seems to be Maharashtra, despite a BJP chief minister. Why? That's the interesting part, and it comes after a language advisory committee has written to the chief minister opposing Hindi as a third language for children in classes 1 to 5 as a mandatory language. It's opposed it. This comes days after directive that NEP, or the National Education Policy, is being implemented in the state, and Hindi will be taught in schools as a third language. More importantly, Maharashtra's language committee did not mince its words while stating on record that the three-language policy is, quote-unquote, unscientific and will place unnecessary pressure on students. If that's the case, ladies and gentlemen, does the centre need to listen in? Are we setting up children to be stress balls from the beginning? Amid politics, whose truth is the truth that parents need to listen into? Also remember, what's unfolding in Maharashtra is very different from what's happening down south, particularly Tamil Nadu, which has been pushing back what they call Hindi imposition. In Tamil Nadu, it's a pushback primarily against Hindi imposition. In Maharashtra, though, is the BJP-led ruling on the back foot and now downplaying the NEP, or what is being seen as Hindi imposition as a third language, because of the history of preservation of Marathi, vis-a-vis languages and influence from southern states and an influx of Hindi from up north. Agitations that are seeped in carving out the Marathi identity of the state, its very core existence. So between practical compulsions of availability of teachers, students interested in a language, and the regional pride, can a third language, or rather a second Indian language as stated in NEP, be anything apart from Hindi? And what does anybody, including those from south or north, make up of what the political stands have been? I'm being joined by Asif Bamla, who's a spokesperson for BJP, Anish Gawande, who's a national spokesperson for NCP Sharad Pawar faction, as well as Furqan Qamar, who's an educationist. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining me. Well, let me straight come to you, Asif Bamla. The first question, it's none other than the committee of the government itself. It's not a political rival. It's not anybody else, say, from an opposition-ruled state. It's an education expert committee with experts, with linguists, with educationists who have come up and said something very strong. NEP is unscientific. Let's just start with that, Asif Bamla. What do you make out of that?
Well, what the state education policy had proposed was that you see that Marathi, of course, has always been given a very special status, and it is the first language. It is compulsory, mandatory, no choice, no discussion further. Secondly, the Hindi language, of course, because in all other states of India and all the other cities of India, Hindi is spoken the most, so that's like a nationally acclaimed language. Third, English, of course, because English is, of course, internationally a language that's of an acclaim, which, of course, entitles a student whenever they have to travel abroad or outside India, you need to have a third language. So it's not that any compromise has been done towards Marathi. The people who are in the opposition have got no issues left. तो वो कहते हैं ना किसियानी बिल्ली खंबा नोचे, अब इनके पास कोई विषय नहीं रह गया। मराठी अरे मराठी को तो स्पेशल दर्जा देश के आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री ने दिल्ली में दिया है, वो भी इस विधानसभा के चुनाव के बहुत पहले। आप क्या मराठी की बात कर रहे हो? मराठी अस्मिता जितना हमारे देश के पंतप्रधान आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी मराठी बोल पाते अच्छे से, बोलते भी हैं।
I'm sticking to you because Asif Bamla, you haven't answered the question that I asked you. You have gone hammer and tongs behind the opposition, fair enough, and you can make that point for what you are here. But my question is very simple. It's your
You can re-ask me the question.
Panel. It's your committee that is going on saying that NEP is unscientific. I mean, we'll get to the fact of Marathi versus Hindi, that's one point. But your panel is saying NEP is unscientific and that children are being unnecessarily pressurized into learning a language which doesn't need to be enforced the way it is. They are completely against the three-language policy. And I'm asking you with this great responsibility because parents are watching. We are trying to go beyond politics. We get in politics. But it's your expert panel that's saying NEP is unscientific. I'm asking you this specifically again.
So if it is an expert panel of the government of Maharashtra, as you say, and I understand this also very much in all humility, we will certainly respect the decision of the panel. There are many things which independent panels under the ambit of the state government don't favor what has been exhibited by the government or the chief minister in place. So if this proposition has come up, that doesn't mean the government has done some very big crime or it's done something which it can't roll back. Of course, there are decisions that have to be reconsidered, that have to be revisited. So if the panel has come out with something, I am sure it has something legitimate in larger interest of the benefits of the students of Maharashtra, which I understand. So if that is the case, the entire decision would be revisited and then a composite plan, which would be a rather favorable plan, would be come into being and would be put into practice. But what is so much of a
can I
noise
say
for?
that BJP spokesperson is telling Mirror now that they are going to revisit the decision? About NEP, about implementation of NEP, because NEP has been implemented in the state, the government has gone ahead. Are you saying that NEP is NEP, and I'm not talking about Hindi alone, I'm talking about NEP being revisited, the decision around NEP being implemented?
You see, any suggestions that come within the state committee has to be, of course, visited. And is it something wrong? Has this happened? Is this something which has never happened in the past, in the previous governments, that this is something something that's going to create a taboo in the existing government, or इससे कोई बहुत पहाड़ टूट जाएंगे या आसमान हिल जाएगा, ऐसी तो कोई बात नहीं है. ऐसी जब चीजें होती है,
Okay. I gave you a lot of time. Asif Bamla, and thank you for answering the way you had. Let me get in Anish Gawande. Anish, a very simple question. Look at what Asif Bamla is saying. Decode to us, how do you look at where and how is the ruling front right now positioned? You have its expert panel saying unscientific. You have an expert panel saying that it's going to pressurize children. You have an opposition that's going hammer and tongs. Do not get in Hindi the way it is, and it is imposition. The BJP rushes in saying NEP is being implemented. Hindi is going to be taught in schools from 1st to 5. The expert panel says do not teach Hindi as a third language from 1st to 5. How do you decode this?
You know, Sneha, the challenge is that two people in Delhi are deciding what we wear, what we eat, and now how we study. The NEP is a half-baked policy which cannot be implemented across the country. We know this for other reasons as well. The 4-year undergraduate idea, which has been debunked by a lot of academics and educationists as a half-baked idea. The 3-language policy, which has come under criticism from their own panels and their sort of committee members. And more importantly, this idea of centralizing all decisions within education to those who are sitting in Delhi. Now, I'll tell you 3 problems with the NEP in Maharashtra, right? Now, the 3-language policy in Maharashtra becomes a 4-language policy. Why? Because we have traditionally been a multilingual state where many children, including my own friends, have also learnt a 4th language like Gujarati or Tamil or Kannada, depending upon where they are in the state. The center has moved to say that Hindi is the language that you should study and English is also something that you should study, will mean that schools now have to make the choice between teaching children their own mother tongue or Marathi. Which language is going to suffer over here? More importantly, the bigger challenge is that there is a centralization of education in Delhi now. Why should every school in Maharashtra follow a CBSE curriculum according to this government? Why should NCERT textbooks be introduced for all schools across Maharashtra? Do we not have our own culture? Do we not have our own heritage? Why should all decisions be taken by remote control in Delhi? And third and most importantly, there's a complete lack of educationists on this panel. You know, I'm very eager to hear from the educationists on our panel today about the impact this has on kids. You know, unfortunately, the reality is we've reduced any change in this country to adding or removing chapters from textbooks. I often say this for other contexts as well. You know, you can't teach children to be environmentalists by adding a chapter or a subject in school. It has to come through more innovative ways. But the reality is that we have become educationally bankrupt. Our cultural and educational institutions are being driven to the ground. Mumbai University, one of the finest universities in the country, is now flailing. 700 public libraries in Maharashtra have shut down in the last 5 years alone. Marathi cultural centers and institutions are dying as we speak. And while the government gives classical language status to Marathi, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's forts are lying neglected despite multiple promises since 2014 to revive them. So the hypocrisy is standing out today. And the reality is that we cannot centralize education, and we need experts discussing this, not politicians.
Asif Bamla, is this where BJP is caught on the back foot? One, you have the entire history of activism and protection for Marathi, the identity. Second, what seems to be allegations of centralizing everything and forgetting the distinct identity and flavor of the state, whether it be Tamil Nadu, whether it be Maharashtra, down south, up east.
There is nothing as such. My friend Anish Gawande is just trying to, confuse a situation. Where has anyone said that Marathi is not mandatory and compulsory? That's the first language. That has always been regarded.
The point is not whether Marathi is compulsory. So. The point is about Hindi automatically becoming compulsory. Is that becoming a bane? What is wrong if there is a chance of a choice in a second language to have Hindi? In Maharashtra, you want a second language to be a Telugu or a Malayalam? Of course, Hindi हम सब बात करते हैं. हमारे जो अन्य राज्य में जब हम मुंबई का हो या महाराष्ट्र से हो कई लोग जाते हैं. अभी कुछ 1 minute to you, Asif Bamla. Where is the option of choice? Here's the question. Where is the option of choice? Asif Bamla, where is the option of choice? 1 minute to you. Where is the option of choice? You are saying what is the problem of Hindi becomes the option. Second option, where is it as an option? The moment you bring in a 3-language policy where a second Indian language has to be learned in Maharashtra, where you have 2 students, say, from Telangana, 3 students from Kerala, 4 students from, say, Kashmir, another 5 students, say, from another part of the state, say, Manipur or Mizoram, you are then going to say, teach all of these children whatever language they want. It's automatically Hindi. What are we talking about, sir?
Students, be it students from Telangana, be it from Tamil Nadu, be it from Kashmir, let me tell you all, the most significant language outside Maharashtra in any part of India at least is definitely Hindi, and I'm sure my friend Anish will agree with that. So I don't see any issues if
let Hindi the children decide which is the most significant language, Asif Bamla. Furqan Qamar, I know you're waiting patiently, but you are the expert and we are waiting to hear you out. Anish, do you very quickly want to respond to Asif? Very quickly. Anish, very quickly.
I have one very simple phrase. I'm standing here in Delhi और हिंदी के साथ हमारा कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. हिंदी तुझसे बैर नहीं, हिंदी imposition तेरी खैर नहीं.
Okay, that's very much similar to what we've been hearing over the last few weeks for that matter, particularly from Tamil Nadu as well. Furqan Qamar, come in. Next few minutes to you, while we'll try to go to a political analyst again for one last remark. Break this down for us. First point. Do you agree with what the committee has said? The committee, and this is very important because this is an expert committee. This is a committee from Maharashtra. Committee is saying NEP is unscientific. Committee is saying a third language from classes 1 to 5 is going to create unnecessary pressure on children from 1 to 5. Break this down for us as an expert. How do you look at this?
Sneha, in a few writings and programs, I have said that this national education policy is a combination of good, bad, and ugly. There are many good things, but the ugliest part of the policy is that is being always read with the political lens and according to convenience of people. This national education policy nowhere said that Hindi must be taught. In fact, the word languages has been mentioned in this policy document 227 times. Word Hindi has been used only once, one mention only at one page. And just to give you a glimpse, this policy very clearly said that the three languages learned by children will be the choice of the states, the region, and of course the students themselves, so long as at least two of the three languages are native Indian languages. In fact, the ultimate decision maker here is the student. Give a student a choice. Why state after states are taking decisions to impose Hindi is that they want to save money. They don't want to invest in teachers of different languages, and therefore they want an easy way out. They are forgetting one of the spirit of the national
You're
education.
right, because Maharashtra government has said that on record. Fadnavis has said that on record.
So, you can't, you have to invest in education. In fact, the policy itself said that enough investment would be made in teaching of different Indian languages. I think there is another issue that is going to come later, because the policy itself mentions that if one language is to be taught compulsorily, that is Sanskrit. So far, no state has taken a lead in that regard, but someday this issue would also come, and maybe we shall be debating it. I think let us read national education policy objectively. Let's keep the politicians out and politics out of that and see things on
Is that
merit.
possible? Is that possible? Because the way this is being implemented and interpreted in states, across states, is by political parties and politically elected governments who definitely seem to be in the either which spectrum depending upon their ideology and belief. So if you're saying let us enforce it, implement it without politics, is that a possibility? Very quickly.
No, politics pervade all aspects of our life. I don't mean that. You see, all these problems are arising because things are not being discussed. Had this policy document been discussed in the Central Advisory Board of Education, where not only the education ministers of all states are represented, but they are also experts. I think if you discuss in detail, some solution would come by and a consensus opinion would emerge. The problem is that we are not trying to talk to each other, rather we are trying to talk at each other, and therefore we are imposing one thing after another and creating problems. I think so long as these things go on, education would remain in limbo and the children
One more question. Mr. Qamar, one question. I want to ask you, is CBSE putting a nail to its own coffin? Why I'm asking you this question? At a time when boards, including several other boards, including IB and so on and so forth, are literally taking a grip of metros and several other cities across the country, is the CBSE making a mockery out of children who literally believe in a system? Not just children, but also their parents. Are we making a mockery of education?
I would say so, but like in an earlier debate, I had said that nobody here mentioned that these decisions should have been taken by an autonomous body. NCRT is an autonomous body, but the sad part is that this body also tries to do what its masters want it to do. That is where the problem is. In fact, I appreciate this language committee in Maharashtra, which pointed out the reasons that why this decision of imposing Hindi and teaching it mandatorily may not be a good decision, may not be a bad decision. I think there should be
And it takes courage.
After all, it's a national education policy and there has to be a national consensus. Remove the bad part, keep the good parts, and
All right, sir.
in a very sincere and honest manner.
Okay, 30 seconds. Anish, to you first.
Firstly, my point is simple. The question is of choice. Why was Hindi made compulsory from the 1st to the 5th standard, and why did the Education Committee have to write to the Chief Minister against this policy? The second point is that in this contested political terrain, what is the vision that this government has for education? We were introducing IB and BMC schools, and they want to introduce CBSE across the state and give our students a subpar education and prevent them from accessing the best opportunities. This is the vision for education that's at stake, and we want what's best for Maharashtra's kids, and unfortunately that vision is lacking.
Asif Bamla, 30 seconds.
You see, if I was given more time, but you've given me restricted time, there are many initiatives that the state government has taken.
Oh my goodness,
There's
Mr. Asif Bamla, I gave you the
Marathi Bhasha
most
Bhavan
here.
that's
But
been
please
put
go ahead.
up. No, there's this Marathi Bhasha Bhavan that's been put up in South Mumbai. So there are various situations like this. There are various initiatives that's taken by the government. No one's even talking about it. Just because the committee, of course, I respect the committee with all humility. But like Mr. Furqan mentioned that, and again, I would also want to submit that there's a major constraints for teachers with other languages also. You have to also consider now, for example, you have
Therefore,
about
there is
5
no choice.
students who prefer to
Therefore, there is no choice,
to
sir.
study Telugu. No,
Okay.
therefore की बात नहीं है.
Thank you so much
have
to
to
our
also
panelists.
see
We are
an-
totally out of time. I understand each of you bring to the table what you have in terms of your perspectives. Parents and children have a lot to decide on. Unfortunately, not many of them really will be in a position to make those alternatives. I leave our viewers with one very, very simple simple point of reference. Remember, Kendriya Vidyalayas across the country have a choice of studying social sciences in any language, whether it be English or Hindi for that matter. They can just choose between these two languages. But many schools up north, even though give you the choice of studying social sciences in English, inadvertently in classrooms teach you in Hindi while you go and take those examinations in English if you so will. Not every school, but many schools across cities. That's a thought to ponder even between English and Hindi, and we're getting in a third language. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're totally out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Asif Bamla. Thank you, Anish Gawande. And thank you, Furqan Qamar. Thank you so much.